Hello, boys and girls. I realized just now my camera is supposed to be working, but for some reason it's not. So let me dig around with this for a second. This is old man yells at... Oh, it is working actually. I just had the screen off to the side like a dummy. So let me resize some stuff. Oh, you silly goddamn program. Okay, and then we'll check this thing here. Dun 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 dun. Oh yeah, I gotta push play. Yay, look at me. Hey, this is Old Man Yells at Cloud for my Patreon Blue Powder Monkeys. It's been a little while. Sorry about that. Life stuff comes up. All, which I won't go into. One, privacy is a thing, but more honestly, I think that stuff is boring for most people. Wasn't anything other than just normal life shit. Some good, some bad. Some holidays. Yeah. All right. So today, I'm really ticky today. Sorry about that. I'll try to keep that to a minimum. I also had too many cigars, which you'd think there was no such thing. But I've started having smaller, little cigarette-sized ones, trying to cut down a little bit, as opposed to like big honking ones. And I had a couple of big honking ones today, or normal-sized ones, and I had them up at Thunderbird, which is a nice lounge. I go there all the time, but a lot of times I try to sit outside because the inside, no cigar lounge has like super good ventilation, and theirs is average, I guess. It's a little better than some, and it's a little worse than others, but it definitely creates dry throat when you're in there because you're not only kind of breathing other people's secondhand smoke, which isn't great, but you're talking all the time because it's social. Anyway, so this is I had a woman who had worked with me for Worldcon in Seattle contact me because she's working for Worldcon in LA, which is the Worldcon this year, and sadly the Worldcon people never contacted me to do the program, even though the Seattle program was really, really good. Anyway, but that's fine. Like I got a bunch of stuff to do, and I wouldn't have known anybody down there, and that's always hard to kind of start working with people because no one trusts each other initially, and everybody wants to have a bigger piece of the pie than they may need or deserve. I'm not saying that's them. I'm just saying that's just a thing that happens when you work with new people. There's a whole feeling out process, and doing a Worldcon probably isn't the best. Doing a giant project probably isn't the best way to do that when everybody's volunteers and all that. Anyway, this is their logo, by the way, that you're seeing on the screen here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, because I know I put this on my Norwestcon playlist. The person that is liaisoning this job has worked, and I think maybe still works for Norwestcon. But some of the people at Norwestcon may be interested in design stuff in general, and I'm going to be doing a larger amount of stuff at Norwestcon this year and potentially a larger amount of stuff next year. So I also want to have kind of a series of things I can either point to, or they can kind of listen and be like, oh, that's how to deal with this fucking guy, or that's his philosophies, or whatever it is. So this is LA's logo. From what I gathered, I didn't actually even make the connection at first, but they were kind of doing the City of Angels thing with the wings. The wings to me are more military. They're kind of icon, the symbology wings as opposed to actual wings. Anyway, we've all seen the memes of what angels really look like, horrifying. But I think if the wings were organic, and actually we can just fucking draw on this thing because there's no reason not to. Just not save it here. Oh yeah, that doesn't work good at all. Sorry, it doesn't work well at all. Superman works good. Okay. Oh, cool. I had a eraser brush, maybe? Yeah. All right. Oh, I've been doing a bunch of Wonder Draft stuff, which I also didn't stream because I'm a dummy. So let's do this. There we go. Okay. And let's Oh, I'm listening to the best. I'm listening to Sting. I think it's one of his best albums, Fields of Gold, maybe, which I listened to a lot when I was younger. I normally, frequent viewers of the channel will remember that I usually like listening to albums in their entirety, older albums especially, because the creators designed the album to work in a certain way and be listened to in a certain order, as opposed to have just a series of radio hits. That's kind of a modern thing. But this is one of the few, not the few, but this is one of the best of albums that I like. I do have like 2 or 3 other regular Sting albums and all that. Anyway, so I think, oh, he sucked at wings. I think if you did something like this, right? Those are angel wings, or even something a little more organic, right? Those are angel wings. These are like military wings. So I didn't make that connection. So right off the bat, we didn't start off on a good foot. The other thing is, and again, when I talk about this kind of stuff, I'm not intentionally disparaging the person who created it. The person who created it, I always assume, was trying their best. And it comes down to a matter of knowledge or training or a combination of the things, or aesthetically, they just fucking liked it. And that's a perfectly valid excuse for creating something that I don't like, because I've created shit that I thought was awesome that other people don't like. Like, that's just how it works. Making compass roses is weirdly interesting, or difficult, depending on how you want to look at it. So one, I don't know what the compass rose has to do with LA Worldcon or any of this stuff. It's not science fiction-y, it's not LAE, unless there's some icon I'm missing down in LA. So now we're at, I guess you'd call it 2 strikes, and then I don't know what this is. I guess it's supposed to be science fiction-y because someone said it needs to be more science fiction-y or whatever, I don't know. So organic wings, and then something that represented LA. I mean, I'm not a native. I technically was born in, not technically, I was born in California, but it was Santa Cruz, and we moved when I was like 4, right? So I'm not a Californian by any stretch of the imagination. I've been to LA and to Hollywood for various film sort of stuff, but I'm not an expert by any stretch. But compass rose, like, never seen that, or never, don't know what it means or why it means that. Hold on here. Set them free. Oh, that's weird. I'll get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so now we're looking at something that, again, sorry, I feel is generic. Somebody just thought it looked cool, whatever. And then the wings, I don't think were executed in the best manner that they could have been for what they were trying to accomplish. So the whole thing is, to me, it just is starting at kind of like this weird spot. So compass rose. So pen and pencil, right? You draw this, and then you measure, then you do an equal measure, and then you do an equal measure, and you do an equal measure, and then you measure equally this way. Actually, just in case I do fuck things up, let's do that. Okay, let's lock that too. Okay, so if I was going to draw this pen and paper wise, old school, and look at this, I can't even do like casual drawing shit. I'm so fucking OCD about the exactness of things. Do this, right? And then you measure. Let's see, you measure here, and you do an equal measurement here, here, here. Then you do an equal measurement from the center here, 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 right? Then you connect your lines to that point and to this point, like this, and wherever the fuck that was. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, and then this guy over here. Okay, cool. So now I've created my general star, and then I recreate that on a smaller scale for the one behind it. We're not going to go through all that. And then I stick my compass in the compass in the middle of this thing, and I do my circle. And then we figure out how to shade it in, and you can just shade, in a traditional drawing. You can just do that. Fuck it, done, kind of thing, right? But in drafting or in design software, it's a whole fucking thing. All right, so you basically probably start with triangle. All right, something in here. And then you duplicate it, and then you flip it. Upon the seals of Valley. Now the good news is you can just take both of these, do Control V, and do this kind of shit, right? And then at any point, you can copy this whole thing and then just shrink it and do it there, which is what I did. Okay. So, and then you can put a circle over the top of it, and that gets into the whole thing, which we'll get into in a second. All right. The thing with this, though, is the way they created. So objects in design, objects in design software have a fill and a stroke. Right? The fill is the inside. It's the fill, right? And you can see right over here, this is fill. Set fill, right? Set stroke. Hope you can, oh, you can read that because your hand, my hand isn't in the way for you, right? And you can do that. And now this has a stroke, and I come up here, and I make the stroke nice and fatty, right? If I want to. And so what happens is, and then, oh, sorry, and then you do this, right? And you do this. But then when you get to the color, well, how do you do this line, right? You can draw the line if you want. That's perfectly legit. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, right? Or you can do something weird where you cut this in half, which there's several different ways to do that, and you can lay a layer on top of it. There's a bunch of different ways. And so the way that you choose, this is the important part, the way that you choose dictates whether or not, or it dictates how your compass rose lines interact, okay? Because if you have something like that, oh, that was cool. I don't know what I did there. Try to figure it out later. You take objects, and then there's this menu up here. Illustrator has it as well. This combines the objects, right? It's pretty obvious. You do, it's pretty obvious if you select both objects. Boom. Now you have one object that has the same outline as the two objects do. And I believe you can do that, but it's going to default to the first or second one chosen, first one chosen. Okay. So that gives you an idea of that kind of stuff, right? And then over here, you got a cutout. So this is going to chop out a little section of the top object, whatever that object is, right? Okay. And then this one is going to cut out the outsides and leave the innards. So we're going to leave a little mark right in here. Or sorry, that's going to cut out the inside. Got to read their icons differently. And this one's going to put them over the top of each other like they're both transparent. And this one, there's the inside, right? So it's an interesting mathematical deal. Like, to create objects, vector objects in these programs, you can't just draw it and think of it as I mean, you could, but if you want to use these tools, there's these very powerful tools, you have to understand how various objects are going to interact with each other. And then, God forbid you get into like a third object. Right? Okay, that worked okay. But that cut two of them out and left me the change out of the other one, right? And then that did the thing you suspect it would. But look what that did, right? Fucking knows why that happened. And then that did what you expect, right? So you have to learn all these interactions, and it gets even crazier, obviously, when the shapes are different shapes. That's where stuff really starts getting tricky. Anyway, so however they did it, they ended up with these lines, these ruled lines. This part was easy. I'll get to that in a minute, right? But I don't believe that this line is truly in the middle. I think it's actually slightly... Okay, so here's another thing that happens. Here's another factor, another variable for you math people. It's another variable. Okay, so let's exaggerate this, right? By default, when you add a stroke to something, you can see the line of the actual stroke, which is all the measurements come from and all that are down here. It puts the line equal distance on either side. But you have options. That's just one option. You can align it to the inside, or you can align it to the outside. And it kind of depends. I, for whatever reason, prefer visually outside, because when I create an object, I'm creating it to be a certain size. And that's the size that I want it. I don't create an object and then chew up another ½ inch of the object with my stroke. I hardly ever use the inside one. This is the one I use the least. And the middle one, I use the second least, and I almost always use the outside one. Again, because when I make the object, I usually make it the size I want the object to fucking be, right? So let's actually test this out here. I can grab the, I can just do this easier. Grab this. Can I do this easier? Nope, I guess not. All right, anyway. I don't remember how to easily get to fucking node editor in this. It's such a pain. I have to click off of it? Oh. Oh, there we go. Anyway, I'm supposed to be able to manipulate these things individually, but I clearly don't know how to do that for whatever reason. Or it should be doing it, but it's not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So they did something like this, and then they added the stroke. I think they added the stroke inside this way. Right. And then they created another object. It basically did, this is a guess. And then to prevent confusion, let's do, because I have, oops, that's not what I wanted at all. Had my way. Oh, this doesn't have a, okay, never mind. I set up I set up a fucking palette for it, but it's in the actual object that I created, so it's not helpful. All right, so let's just take the stroke off of all of this stuff, right? So let's and actually let's even turn this off, because you get the idea of this thing now. Okay, so let's do this, and let's do that, and let's do that. Hey, Halloween, which is another weird thing that doesn't have anything to do with LA, but whatever. All right. That. You didn't think you were going to get edumacated in this shit, did you? All right. This is a very common and very simple way to create that compass rose effect, right? But now, let's take this one. We can put a black outline around both of them, right? It's pretty thick. So let's tone that down a little bit so we can still see it though. All right. And you can tell this center line is not in the center. And it's not in the center because we have it on the inside. If we have it there, it is roughly, that's actually roughly centered probably. And then the outside is not as centered as much, right? Or even more, I don't know if it's confusingly, the other thing you can do is combine these, throw your stroke on it, of walking on the late, and then do some sort of like stacking thing underneath it. That somehow sometimes works, especially maybe you want to have a stroke on one half and not a stroke on the other half. But anyway, knowing all that, knowing all this craziness, right? Now when we look at this, I should just measure it and see, right? Okay. And then let's set this stroked that. All right, so the edge of this stroke right now is the edge of where the dots are, right? So if I were to touch this line and touch the last bit of the color, which is right there. So then let's do this. Oh. All right, and then let's copy, paste. I could be totally wrong about this, but let's find out. Look at that, right? That's the inside of both of these objects. So they're off center. It's off center. On top of that, look how thick this is compared to this one. So they basically did like a stroke, and then at some point they did kind of a double stroke somewhere. Well, that technically could be, no, it's this way too. Yeah, this is asymmetrical. And so that one's asymmetrical because they cloned it. Asymmetrical, asymmetrical. This one, also asymmetrical. They used the same one and they shrunk it down. So, as always, I was correct. No. I mean, you can just tell, or I can tell, looking at it, because you do this long enough and you can see these sort of micro differences and stuff. Oh, and then, yeah, the color ends, right? So, yeah, it's off. It's asymmetrical, which is just, I don't think it was intentional. I'll be honest. There's no reason to make it that way, to be intentional about it, because it just adds, it's so small on the edges, you're not really noticing it or seeing it, so to speak. And it's not fine because people don't notice it. Like, that's not an excuse to do things that aren't good, or things that aren't, you know, the best they can be, I guess I should say better. And then on top of that even more, this is dictated by not only a setting in here, right? So you've got these corners, and you can do rounded corners, you can do like bobbed off corners, and you can do pointed corners. And you're like, oh, it's not doing a pointed corner. No, that's because it has a miter setting. So if I set this miter setting up to maybe 6, now I get my point, right? Now you get the point. So they didn't know how to reconcile this either. So it has all these weird little chopped off points. Anyway, it sounds like I'm really shitting on whoever did this, but I'm really not. It's just a thing. There are a series of things that separate people that do this for a living at a higher level than people that don't. It's the reason why when I was 20, playing, 25, playing semi-pro football, that I thought I could be competitive, with those guys I watch on TV, and I fucking couldn't. I couldn't even be competitive with a D1, probably even a D2 or D3 college player. I can do the same motions, and I knew the same sort of knowledge base, but you just can't do it unless you have been training or doing that thing at a higher level, kind of thing. The other thing about, and it's not an excuse, but the reason I think that I don't get worked up about this, though I sound worked up about it now, but it's kind of, some of it's just for, exaggeration. The reason I don't get super worked up about this is because these conventions are volunteer, and that's very important to remember. Excuse me, LA, and it's kind of funny too, because like, this is a Worldcon. This is where they give out the Hugos. And fucking Ronald Moore is going to be there, who wrote Battlestar Galactica and a bunch of other shit, right? And Stan Sakai did all these cartoons. Like, there are some big name fucking people at this convention, but it's volunteers, right? And a lot of these volunteers, some of them have been doing this thing for a long time. And sometimes you run into design aesthetics that are, for lack of a better term, old-fashioned, because they learned what they liked and what worked in the 80s or 90s. And I was guilty of that one. I went back to school when I was 40, which is when I got my degree, and I had done comic art, and I'd done a lot of stuff. So it wasn't like I was just starting from ground zero at 40 or whatever, but I wanted to get formally trained in this shit. And in the first year, about a month into it, one of the teachers took me aside, and he's like, dude, your shit is old-fashioned. Like, everything that you're doing is fine. Like, it's rendered fine, and it's done okay, but it's just fucking dated, right? And I was like, oh, okay, cool, because I'm pretty good I get cranky about feedback sometimes, but I've said this before, all feedback is good, right? So if you take and utilize the feedback, there you go. And he wasn't beating around the bush, and he wasn't giving me action items. He wasn't telling me how to improve my design, which we'll get to in a second. But he was just like, your shit's old fashioned. It's dated. Like, modernize. And it's like, oh, fuck. All right. I got to start looking at modern design. I got to start looking at advertisements and all these other things. And I got to learn how to do things cool, or the way the kids do it or whatever. And that's all good. Like, you should be learning throughout your life. Absolutely. If you're the same person you were 5 or 6 years ago, honestly, something may have gone wrong. Like, because none of us are obviously perfect. Like, there's a lot of shit I like about myself, but work on myself every day kind of thing. Not to get too self-helpy in there. So anyway, so I'm not really capping the person who did this. I'm not really on their ass about it type of thing. I'm just pointing out things that could have been better. The sharpness of this is a little off-putting. The sharpness of that is a little off-putting. This circle, the circle is kind of easier. Like, the logical thing is to just be like, oh, they did a circle, right? And then they did another circle. And they, I don't know, flopped the colors in it. Who fucking cares? And they kind of made it a little bigger. And then they dropped that circle below this circle. And they did this kind of thing, right? And they just sort of built it out. And that's a perfectly fine way to do it. But, there's not even but, that's a perfectly fine way to do it. The other way you can do it, which is less objects and that kind of thing, is this little menu right here where I can just add a stroke, right? And now I make this, let's make this stroke like some crazy fucking green. There we go. Okay. So right now you're like, dude, where's the, there it is. There's that fucking green stroke, right? So because this one is above that one, right? So I can do this kind of thing. You can also do a tricky thing where like this stroke is in, and now this stroke is out. So that's another way to kind of, and then you have to do math about the thicknesses of the stroke and all the rest of that shit. But if I was to do this, it disappears. And it hasn't disappeared. It's just a lot smaller than, let's get it back up here. All right. It's smaller than this one, but it's going in right now. So let's put them both here. Now it disappears, right? And because it's smaller. If I was to do that, now it's out, right? So what you end up doing, and what I ended up doing, is you do math, right? So if I want a stroke, and that's another reason the Audi, you can tell what show I've been watching. That's another reason why I like the Audi strokes more than the A strokes, right? So the one on the top has to be the narrowest, right? So if I think that this line is 4 pixels, let's pretend, and the line underneath it is 4 pixels, let's pretend, even though all of these are different widths, which hopefully was intentional. Though I'm not sure what purpose it serves other than, anyway, that all doesn't matter. That's more style thing. So this bottom one, if I want 4 pixel thick, the top one needs to be 4 pixels, right? It's just simple math. The bottom one needs to be 8 pixels because it's got to poke out further. And the one underneath that has to be 12 pixels, right? That's just how you do things. That's just how the things work or whatever. So anyway, that was the nutshell of when I first saw this. And plus this file is so small, I could have gotten a print ready one maybe for the t-shirt, but I don't know if they even have one or whatever. These type of banners are always awkward to me. Like, they're used all the time, but it's distracting and weird to me. Not this specific one, these type of banners in general. I get it, but it's also not for this specifically. It's not science fiction-y. It's not LAE. It's not like, what is it representing? A ribbon or something? Like a book? I don't know. Anyway. And then, obviously, I'm a pretty, well, not obviously, some of you may know, I'm a pretty high-end typographer guy. So types are important, and I don't like this one. I don't like this one for this use case. It's not horrible, though, I will say. It's not the most horrible font I found. But a lot of times, again, with these sort of volunteer organizations, you're going to see a lot of kind of free fonts. And there's a reason fonts are free, and it's because they are not as good as fonts that you pay for. It's like anything else. If you go out and you get a free plumber to help you out, he's probably not going to do as good a job as a professional plumber. All right. So this, in my opinion, could have been better, but you also want to utilize as much and as many of the elements that they have already designed. I wasn't hired, quote unquote, to redesign their fucking logo. I'm spouting off about it because I thought somebody might be interested in understanding maybe what I would have done with it or whatever. But this isn't the primary goal of the thing. This is tough. Like, they made a decision, and I don't think there was a right or wrong decision on whether or not you capitalize. If you capitalize everything, then it looks like Lacan. If you capitalize the C, then it looks like lack on, right? And so this is probably the most reasonable without having a space. I'm not sure why you wouldn't just do a space. Just put your dots in there, space con, big C, little O N. But they're trying to be cute or whatever. It doesn't matter. The 5th time they've done it, which is pretty fucking cool. So good for you, LA. Anyway, that was their thing. So the first step in designing this t-shirt is redesigning the logo, is rendering the logo or redrawing the logo to still look like their logo, but be a slightly sort of, upgraded, for lack of a better word, version of it, right? So now we're going to get into the gist of the issues, of the things that are going on with this thing. As a graphic designer, you want to give people what they want. They are hiring you for a thing, and you want to do the thing that they want to do. It's commercial art, but you do want to let them know. I mean, they also are kind of hiring your supposed expertise in the thing, so you want to give them hopefully explanations of why something is wrong or right, in your opinion. Wrong and right being relative, I guess, subjective. So I'll just cut to the spoiler. The person in the LA side of this, not the person that hired me to do the thing, the person on the LA side of this, it has focused on something that I don't think is as important as some other things, right? And it comes down to, what is your purpose? Why are we doing this, right? Why are we making a t-shirt, which is what this is? I might have skipped that part of it. I'm designing a logo for a t-shirt, which I did for Seattle's Worldcon, and that's why the one lady got a hold of me, because she was like, hey, you remember that cool fucking t-shirt you did for us? Can you do something for Worldcon? I'm like, yeah, that's great. And I'm going to find it real quick, I promise, in case you haven't seen it. Let's see. Is it this one? Version 1. Sample 2, version 1. I think this might have been the final version. I think it was. Okay, so this one went back and forth a little bit too. And I ended up being overall pretty happy with it, but it was for volunteers. And so the Seattle Worldcon volunteer t-shirt looked like this. So they wanted something rainbow colory because Seattle, that's fine. Everything else was kind of left up to me. And I was doing the program at the time, so I was able to emulate the font that I used in the program and a little logo that I'd created for the program and a solar system relief that I was doing for the program. This might have been an earlier version because somebody had trouble with the sun, but that's neither here nor there. So what were my intentions, right? Well, the intention is, in Seattle, of course, you almost always have to have some sort of Space Needle of some kind. So it's like, oh, if you can create that out of letters, that's pretty cool. The font was basically either the same or an offshoot font of the original Seattle World's Fair. So it was an homage to the Seattle's World's Fair. And then it's the Hugos, and it's science fiction-y or science-y. So solar system, right? And we have Mercury and Venus and Earth and Mars. And, you know, so you look at it and you're like, oh, there's some random circles. But then when you look at it, you're like, okay, here's the Earth. You're here, which is pointing to Seattle, and rainbow, because everybody's one big happy family here, of course. And then, you know, these other little planetary things. The only thing I think in this that I couldn't ever reconcile, and it's not that big of a deal, is while I liked this vertical text because this also sort of alludes to a space needle, it does create this lesser than sign, sort of. You know, this packaging right here is not necessarily great, but yeah, sometimes. Anyway, so they're like, we need a volunteer t-shirt. All right. So let's discuss what a t-shirt does. A t-shirt in this case needs to have a recognizable icon. Basically, sorry, I accidentally pushed off a thing. I need to go check on the thing real quick here. So the volunteer shirt especially needs to make the volunteers recognizable. It's a uniform. Anything's a uniform, right? So from a distance, can you look down the hall and go, that's a volunteer? And you primarily want to do that with the colors. You want maybe your more pro people wearing orange, and then so-and-so's wearing blues or whatever. Volunteers should be the only ones sort of wearing this color, but that you can't count on that. So you back that up with a logo or a t-shirt thing that is different than the other t-shirts. A lot of the other t-shirts had Donato's art on them, and that's great. But from a distance, Donato's art, aka every artist on the planet, because Donato is phenomenal, it all looks the same, right? You get from a certain distance, it's just a muddy clumping of colors, and you're like, whatever, right? But this thing, from a distance, you're still going to get sort of this rainbow. You're not going to be able to read any of this, which is the crucial point here. But you're gonna get the sense of like, oh, it's blue and it's rainbow, and that's cool. And then the secondary function, and I think in the long run the most important function, is it has to look cool. The volunteer wants to put that thing on and feel fucking cool in their shirt. And I don't want to see these shirts in Goodwill like a week from now because they just took them all down and fucking donated them to the poor or whatever. Not that I don't think the poor should have t-shirts. Anyway, cool t-shirts. So those are the two primary thing. Anything else on the t-shirt itself is kind of bonus. And expecting people to read a t-shirt, I don't want to say it's absurd, but it's way down on the list of shit you should be caring about. Just say it, right? It's because the t-shirt is not there. Like if it's a meme t-shirt or something and it's got a funny joke on it, maybe. But let's take a look at, let's put this thing in context and show you the first design that I did. And there it is. All right. So I rebuilt. All right. Fuck you, squeeze and press. I'll show you on the actual regular version. Might be hard to tell, but I rebuilt this entirely and centered the lines and pointed the lines. And I don't think the logo needed, honestly, an extra layer of shenanigans in a different color. Come on, buddy. There you go. Right? These grays aren't doing anything. And grays and blacks can be some of the most boring fallback things in design. People are just like, oh, I have a cool design. I need to outline it in black. Oh, I have a piece of some wording on a piece of art. I'll just make it black, right? It's like, no, fucking design it. Like choose something that complements the thing or blends into the thing that you're doing, whatever you need to do, right? And so the black and orange is fine, though again, Halloween, I guess. And then this, like, what do these colors have to do with LA Worldcon? Like, I don't fucking know. And maybe there is a reason, but I wouldn't mind a t-shirt educating me on that. No, anyway. So, but then you're adding these gray and these asymmetrical grays on top of that. And so you can't even, like, you get down into here and it's just invisible anyway. And then you get up to here and now it's causing like all these extra lines. It's this especially is you're going black, gray, and then this blue, and it's like, what's going on here? Like, I don't get it. So those went away. And then the other thing, which might have been too clever by half, is there were two things that, and this was low-hanging fruit, right? There's two things that pop into my mind with LA Worldcon. It's like, well, it's in LA, and you have a screenwriter for your writer guest of honor, which is very LA, and he did Battlestar Galactica. Okay, cool. Here's a little Battlestar Galactica icon-y thing, but changed enough that it's not immediately recognizable, but anybody that loves the show can go out and find the logo of the ship itself, and this alludes to that sort of Phoenix-y doodad, right, that they did. This is Courier, which they write scripts in, and it's not just any Courier. It is Final Draft Courier, the actual version of Courier that they use to create scripts. And I wanted to find kind of the Battlestar Galactica font to sort of use from it, but only free versions exist of that, because most likely it was hand-drawn or hand-done. So I found something sort of close, because it's very rounded. And so here we go, right? And then the wings, which I at the time did not understand were angel wings. I thought they were sort of just military icons again. You know, I allude to those in the background a little bit. There's a little poke out here, but I used, you know, I lined up. Can I get a not text? All right, let's close this thing down. Final, no. Cool. Let's get to it. Yeah, here we go. All right. Oh, this is the next one, actually. So we'll get to that in a second, too. And that means I closed the first version, which is what I was literally talking about like a dummy. And that's why see, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. And that's why hold on for a second. That's why I kept getting the goddamn cursor thing that was bugging me, is because it's a PDF. Anyway, so I sent this off, and they came back, and they're like, hey, we don't want the LA Con all as one thing. And I talked about that, and I think what they did was correct, and I just sort of did this without really sort of thinking about it that much. And so that's, you know, that's perfectly normal. And then let me find, because I don't want to paraphrase. I want to paraphrase things, put words in people's mouth. Colors sounds good. Okay. Feedback is the LA Con needs to not all be capitalized. Totally fine. And they found the font hard to read. And then she gave me the names of two of the fonts that they used. So I was like, okay, cool. I was fine with it. Again, I was like, you're not really reading a T-shirt. And this is the thing that you need to kind of see from the distance, and the volunteer being in big letters, you need to see in the distance. But okay, reasonable, you know, no problem. So one of the fundamental things about design, and the reason that people think that they can give, when people give specific feedback, it's usually, all feedback is good. Specific feedback is actually less helpful. It's less helpful because now you're trying to design the thing the way that you imagine it, I guess, or the way that you think it should be done. Or especially with little changes like this. And again, it's maybe like telling the plumber what direction the pipe should point, or how many degrees the angle in the thing should be, or whatever else. But more importantly, for design specifically, not plumbing, when you make a change, it's not just a change, it cascades into all other aspects of it. Because if it's a good design, it's balanced on the head of a fucking pin to do the thing you want it to do. And changing a thing makes you revisit all the other things, because it's all relations of negative space, right? So even changing this font, even if she would have just said, do the small CON and just change the font into one of our fonts, that sounds perfectly reasonable, and I would have done it. But it wouldn't have been just me reselecting this and changing the font. I would have done that. And then I would have had to spend another 5, 10, however many minutes tweaking. because the shapes of those letters are going to interact with this differently. This is a juxtaposition between sharp angles and rounded corners for the most part. Other than that, which I probably should have almost lined up with this, would have been kind of cool. But I wanted that O to line up here, right? I think the R is a little off. It's probably just this negative spot of the O, but it does line up with that. Anyway, and what this does, and you may not have seen it, and that's fine because you're not kind of quote unquote supposed to. Speaking of the asymmetrical sort of center line, this is not in the center. This is slightly merged this direction. It goes a little further this way than it goes this way. And that is so that O would line up with everything. And there were sort of two things involved, because the other things I could have done was change the kerning, which is the space in between the letters. And I probably could have opened up that LA a little bit more here too. So there was a little bit of that, and then there was a little bit of just sort of like rotating it very slightly to do the thing, right? But even a different type of font is going to create a whole different thing. Okay. So I made changes. I didn't use one of their fonts because, again, they're okay, but I felt like, now we're going to close them all, right? Yeah, go fuck yourself. I felt like this was cleaner or better than the ones that they had used, which we saw before. And I did this. And I punched up the wing. They were like, oh, it represents angel wings. I think that's part of it. Oh, they really do want the wings because LA is the city of angels. It's like, okay, cool. Now they're layered, which I think looks better. And this looks fine to me. This is a little off, maybe. But now the feedback has come back after this because, again, it opened up more things. And now the feedback was the issue now is the overlay of the words into here, basically, is what they were mainly concerned about. Very hard to read adventure and awaits because they bleed into the wings. And that again sort of triggered my, you're not reading the shirt. And no one wearing this shirt or looking at this shirt is being trained or discovering what their theme is, which is Adventure Awaits. Nobody's learning that on a volunteer t-shirt. They're at the fucking convention. If they've done their job right, it's everywhere already, right? It's on their fucking badges, it's hanging on the walls, it's whatever. And they definitely know they're at LA-Con 5 for sure. So this doesn't matter at all. But the whole Adventure Awaits thing, it's like, it's fine. The problem with people, the problem comes that there's a certain mindset that needs everything to be recognizable and readable immediately. And if it's not, it's wrong. And that is incorrect. Sorry, that's wrong. Something needs to be engaged with. Somebody needs to look at a thing, and if they don't understand the thing immediately, maybe they need to take a second, A. And B, if it's engaging enough, the job is to make it engaging enough that they engage with the thing. And they go, oh, I'm not quite sure what that says yet, but it's cool. What does it say? Oh, Adventure Awaits. That's cool. I like this thing, and I liked that I had to engage with it for a second, or whatever it is kind of thing. On top of which, we understand words with fewer letters than the words need. We understand, if I was to cover, this is sort of a different example. If I was to do that, it's still volunteer, right? That not as much, right? But that, you can cover quite a bit of words actually, right? Do you understand that this is Adventure Awaits? Like, it looks like Venture Away, and you can have fun, make jokes about it and shit, but you pretty much know fundamentally that it's Adventure Awaits. But the bottom line being, hey, they don't need to know what the fucking theme is at this point. Like, they know what the theme is, right? So that was one of the things I sort of, I bumped up against. And then the final deal was the final piece of feedback What if we took the blue background wings, which I guess are these ones, eliminated the separation between them, but kept the scalloped edges so they mimic the internal wings. Make sure we were backing off the internal wings so they don't overlap on both sets of wings, basically slightly reducing the font size. So their suggestion was to close up these gaps, which would take care of this problem, and then close these up and make them slightly smaller or reduce the font size smaller. Actually, oh, no, it was literally just reduce the font size. So they want to close up this path and then reduce the font size. Well, I have news for you. You know what reducing the font size does? Two things. It makes it harder to read. Yeah, it definitely does. On top of which, I'm going to do it because, again, it's their project and they should have the version that they really asked for good or for ill. It's going to look like garbage. Or not garbage. It's not going to be great. Because the issue is these scalloped edges only work, well, let me rephrase that. I could actually leave this, and maybe that's what they intended and weren't able to articulate because they were trying to give me a very specific idea, right? Which I might have discovered on my own, or would have, anyway, that's not a whole thing. That does sound like a rant, so I withdraw that portion of my rant. So they basically want this closed up and all the rest of that and shrink it down. Now, again, despite the passion in my voice, it's mainly because I haven't recorded in like 2 months or whatever. They're not horrible ideas, and I think the version that they want that looks like that is going to be okay. But I'm also just going to kind of find a hopefully very polite way to just be like, hey, could you reconsider this second version with the following information in mind? Like, it needs to look cool. And maybe when I do it, I will decide that it looks cooler than this version, and I'll just let the whole thing go. But the idea is that a lot of art direction and a lot of sort of direction that people give in this sort of field makes as much sense as like trying to, I don't know, that's kind of a weird analogy, like trying to tell your mechanic how to fix your car. It's like you acknowledge we're some reason we're much more willing to acknowledge things that we suck at if we're not as interested in them in the same ways. Because everyone likes art, they all have opinions on art, and that's fine. It's a free country. You have all the opinions that you want. But I have to be able to separate an opinion from an educated opinion. And that's an important distinction. And again, as a graphic designer, you end up doing less optimal work to please the client, and that's just the way it goes. But my own sort of makes me at least be like, hey, tap the brakes. I understand that this potentially could look a little complicated or busy. I mean, if you would have just been like, hey, it looks busy, it's like, okay, I can deal with that part of it. But, you know, you get this down to there, which may be the distance that they see that volunteer. You're seeing that blue is all you're seeing the word volunteer, and you're seeing kind of this, right? None of this will fucking matter, and none of that will fucking matter whatsoever. And then as you get closer, you're like, oh, it's LA. Oh, Adventure Awaits. That's cool, right? Because you'll see the words. The words will become actually relevant about right there before you get all the way in. And yeah, the bigger you get, maybe it does start looking super busy. But anyway, so that's my fucking rant. Even though you signed up to see me like design shit. Let's see here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to design shit. So the first thing I'm going to do is save this as volunteer shirt. This is technically version 3, but I didn't save version 2. Version 3. Version 2. Okay. All right, so let's just vanish this shit. So the easy way to do this is just going to be oh, I had the original logo in this thing actually. Let's get rid of these wings. All right, let's see what we got here. We got these wings and we got this thing. Okay, it would actually probably be easier just to delete or to combine the two objects. So let's do this. I always want to kind of make a backup in case shit goes horribly wrong. All right, so now we do this thing that we talked about. Boom. All right. Now it created a black outline around the whole thing. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Did I have one already? No, I didn't. Does it look better with it? I think it might add a little... it doesn't suck. It's fine. Okay. Nice. This is gonna mess up the. Oh, go fuck yourself. Is what that said. I don't think that's going to be workable. Ooh, that looks awful. Okay. Oh, that's why I had these little lines here too. That's pretty cool. Okay. Alright, so it's pitting a blue box. Let's see here. Oh, god damn it. Why aren't you locked? Big dummy. You big dummy. Did it not do a box thing? Now we're getting into the whole, sometimes this program is a pain in the ass. Why is the circle so prominent, I wonder? Oh, because of that. Red thing to do. Okay, I don't mind that. Whoops. Let's do some of that kerning shit we talked about. Because this stuff is black outlined, right? It's not. It should be. Probably not. Yes. Don't believe anymore. Oh, it's almost there. Kind of feel like it should be. If I lined it up intentionally, then it would look like I was doing something intentionally, and I'm not, so I'm just going to leave that there. Regardless of ideology. Now, I'm going to probably send this version because I'm actually okay with it. And then if they come back and they're worried about this, then I know that it's somebody that just basically has kind of a, I don't know, like clinically OCD, but it's because that's unfair. But somebody that just has a little, is dialed in a little too much as far as, I don't want to sound like I'm making fun of somebody, but it's the kind of person that keeps the peas and mashed potatoes separate, which is totally fine if you're that person. Like, I'm not thinking you're weird or whatever, but things can touch other things. It's fine. How does that look? I'm looking at the R right now, right there. Like, I feel like at the middle of the bowl, or the middle of the little space in the bowl there. Why does that look like it curves, doesn't it? It doesn't, though. Let's see, make this little thing here. I just got, you know, it's making fun of people that don't let their peas and carrots touch or whatever, but here I am, like, micromanaging this fucking tiny little thing. So yes, self-aware. There we go. Okay. But I mean, honestly, it brings more prominence to this transition to not that have it, so that may be what gets pushed back. I'll see. I also, again, because I'm working with new people, I don't know. You want to assume the most benevolent thing, right? But you haven't worked with them, so it's like, is this a person that just needs to leave their mark on everything, or a person that needs to have like the very last bit of control? Who knows, right? Oh, what is going on? Listen to. I must have taken this off a CD or something, and it sounds like the CD sort of like shit the bed at a certain point during the fucking transfer. So anyway, yeah, it seemed like I was going to do a lot of work, but honestly, I think that's fine. And if they come back wanting the text shrunk up or something, then I mean, maybe I could just preemptively do it so I don't have to keep dealing with it. I mean, that's the other thing, too, is you sort of acquiesce to a different point of view because you're just like, I'm fucking tired of doing this. And I am kind of tired of doing this, honestly. Like, I thought it would be a fun little thing. I don't regret doing it because I'm going to get a T-shirt out of it, so that'll be cool. 57. There we go. So these need to be the same size or dramatically a different size, and they aren't right now. So let's go ahead and 57 this. Oh, fuck, never mind. I guess it was a different size. Rockwell Extra Bold 72, okay. 57. All right, well, fuck me. I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. I guess the LA does look quite a bit bigger than those, so I wonder if that'll come more apparent now that I've shrunk this part down. Oh, no. Merp. There's an optical illusion happening right now where it feels like it is kind of widening. It feels like it's widening here compared to in through here, but I don't think it is. I think it's just an illusion, and it makes this seem asymmetrical, although it seems symmetrical here. But then it gets kind of a little weird here. I think that's just the shape of the letters and whatnot. Yeah, I got to base it on the R. Right there. And then this gap is different now. This is what I'm talking about. Like that little change, that tiny little change has been like a half an hour. Yeah, 15 minutes, whatever. I could be reading I'm reading the third book in the Annihilation series right now, which they made that movie out of. The book is different, and Alec Garland, who wrote and directed Annihilation, and I liked Annihilation, the movie, which is why I decided to read the book. He read the book once and then just fucking wrote a screenplay, and it's like, okay, cool. So it's not Annihilation as much as it is a story that takes place in the same world, kind of, and sort of similar characters, I guess. But then I read the book, and I'm like, oh, the book's pretty fucking cool, actually. And then the second book, I think I liked more, which is what happened with me with Three Body Problem. Like Three Body Problem, the first one, I was like, all right, I get why this is what it is or whatever, but it was a lot. And then the Dark Forest, I read that, and I'm like, oh, this is fucking great. And the third one was fine, right? Same with Annihilation. Like the third one is fine, but I'm having a little trouble getting through it. And part of it is I've been going to bed really late, and it's a lot to kind of absorb. So anyway, I could be reading that right now instead of messing around on the internet with this design work type of stuff. I will say the first Annihilation had a scene in it, and I don't think it's spoiling anything. There's something called the Crawler in it. If you read the book, I know the scene, and someone basically confronts the Crawler, and it's like a page and a half of just language, just weird shit happening. And I was reading it out on my deck, and I intentionally had turned off all the deck lights that were out there. So I had my little cigar, freaking Kindle in my lap, and it's dark, and I'm just reading it because it's kind of horror, basically, science fiction horror, metaphysical horror, body horror, and it was freaky. It was just like, I hadn't been that sort of like creeped out by written passages since probably House of Leaves, which is this whole thing. But anyway, I would have liked to do the program for Worldcon LA. It would have severely curtailed the things that I'm going to be doing for NorwestCon, including I still would have been able to do the program for NorwestCon. And honestly, maybe it wouldn't have that much, because I don't think a lot of the NorwestCon stuff is going to kick up until late August anyway, and LA is going to be the conventions in late August, so it would have been all this previous time. But we had some weird stuff where we had to go to Arizona, and there was a whole lot of time in there that I might not have been able to work on it. But it would have been fun, because I do screenwriting stuff and filmmaking stuff. So the program would have definitely had that vibe. Like I would have tried and gotten Ronald Moore's script pages with maybe his notes, his handwritten notes on stuff. If he would have allowed me to maybe scan a couple of those and use them as texture in the background for pages, I think would have been really cool. Anyway. I think we're good. I appreciate whoever stuck it clear through to the end when you watch this someday. I don't usually have live viewers. Oh, I might have a live viewer now. Hi, live viewer. Thanks for tuning in. And have a good night. I'm going to obviously try. I was posting fairly regularly before, and I'm going to try to get back into it, so I'll do that. And I have worked on a couple things for NorwestCon that I didn't stream. And I will attempt to, they were kind of minor stuff, but I'll attempt to stream anytime that I sort of work on NorwestCon things in the future. So, all right.